welcome to the Late Night Primate Episode 7. I haven't slept since Tuesday. Larry's here. Baz is here. I think there's a penguin in the lobby.
Let's just do this before the landlord shuts off the power. Larry, try not to hurt yourself.
I recently decided to get my garden back in shape, so I went down to the local nursery to find some ground cover. I told the owner, I need something that grows fast, looks good, and is tough to kill. He pointed me towards some high-end petunias. I took them home and planted them everywhere. Front yard, backyard, side of the house. But the next morning, I woke up and they were all gone. Just flat earth. I went back to the guy and said, "Those petunias you sold me, they disappeared overnight." He looked concerned and asked, "Did you see any tracks?" I told him, "Actually, yeah. There were tiny little footprints all over the mulch." He sighed, shook his head and said, "Ah, I should have warned you. Those were Petunia-eating elephants." I said, "Elephants? That's ridiculous. How do you stop them?" He handed me a jar of red paint and said, "Paint your toenails red and hide in a cherry tree." I asked, "Does that actually work?" He looked me dead in the eye and said, "Have you ever seen an elephant in a cherry tree?" I said, "No." He nodded and said, "See, it works."
Painting your nails red, Larry? Finally, a hobby that matches your performance, flamboyant and useless.
I was driving down the motorway yesterday when I saw a guy broken down on the shoulder. He had a penguin sitting in the passenger seat. I pulled over to help, and he said, "My engine's dead, but I really need to get this penguin to the zoo. Can you take him?" I said, "Sure." 2 hours later, the guy has his car fixed. He's driving through town and sees me walking across the street with the penguin. He pulls over and yells, "Hey, I thought I told you to take him to the zoo." I looked at him and said, "I did. We had a great time. Now we're going to the cinema."
I'd rather go to the cinema with the penguin than sit through another minute of this. At least he's dressed for the occasion.
I was helping my friend build a wall last weekend. We bought exactly 1,000 bricks. We worked all day, measuring, leveling, buttering the mortar. At the very end, we realized we had one brick left over, just one single brick sitting on the grass. My friend was so frustrated, he picked it up and chucked it as high as he could into the sky just to get rid of it. Anyway, that's not the joke. The joke is about a woman on an airplane. She's sitting in coach, minding her own business, when she decides to have a cigar. The man next to her complains, so she opens the window, don't ask me how, and throws the cigar out. 10 minutes later, she looks out the window, and what do you think she sees stuck to the wing? The brick.
A callback to a joke you didn't even tell yet? You're making my brain itch, Larry.
I went fishing with a buddy of mine who is notoriously stingy. He didn't want to buy bait, so he grabbed a piece of paper, wrote minstrel on it, he's a big fan of the candy, and threw it in the water. We sat there for 40 minutes. I'm catching trout left and right with my expensive lures, and he's just staring at his floating piece of paper. Suddenly, the line tugs. It's a huge pull. He fights it for 10 minutes, sweat dripping down his face, reeling it in inch by inch. Finally, he pulls it out of the water. It wasn't a fish. It was a piece of wood with a note attached that said, "Thanks for the chocolate."
Thanks for the chocolate. I wish I could send a note to your parents that says, "Thanks for the mistake."
A lion is walking through the jungle, feeling himself, acting all tough. He steps on a thorn and starts howling in pain. A tiny mouse comes over and says, "I can help you, but you have to promise not to eat me." The lion agrees. The mouse pulls the thorn out and they become best friends. A week later, the lion sees the mouse being chased by a cheetah. The lion jumps in, scares the cheetah away, and saves the mouse. The mouse says, "Wow, thanks. How can I ever repay you?" The lion says, "Actually, I'm hosting a dinner party tonight. You should come as the guest of honor." The mouse is thrilled. He shows up at the lion's den, and the lion says, "Everyone, I'd like you to meet my main course." The mouse says, "Wait, you promised." And the lion says, "I know, but I'm a lion. I'm a big fan of irony."
Irony? The only irony here is a monkey telling jokes that aren't even funny to other monkeys.
A wide-mouthed frog is hopping through the jungle feeling incredibly curious. He hops up to a giraffe and says in his huge, booming voice, "Hello, Mr. Giraffe, I'm a wide-mouthed frog. What do you feed your babies?" The giraffe looks down and says, "Well, I feed my babies the tender leaves from the very tops of the acacia trees." The frog nods and says, "Oh, that's nice," and hops along. He finds a lion and bellows, "Hello, Mr. Lion. I'm a wide-mouthed frog. What do you feed your babies?" The lion growls, "I feed my cubs fresh meat from the plains." The frog shouts, "Wow, that's fascinating." Finally, he hops up to a giant alligator. He yells, "Hello, Mr. Alligator. I'm a wide-mouthed frog. What do you feed your babies?" The alligator sneers, shows his teeth, and says, "I feed my babies wide-mouthed frogs." The frog immediately puckers his lips into a tiny microscopic circle and whispers, "Oh, you don't see many of those around here, do you?"
Stick with the tiny mouth, Larry. It suits you. Don't open it again tonight.
A man is driving down a deserted highway in the middle of a thunderstorm when his car breaks down right in front of a monastery. He knocks on the door, and the monks let him in, feed him, and give him a bed. In the middle of the night, he hears a strange sound, a thumping, rhythmic, mysterious noise coming from the basement. He asks the head monk, "What was that sound?" The monk says, "I can't tell you, you aren't a monk." The man is obsessed. He goes home, but he can't sleep. 5 years later, he goes back and says, "I want to join." He spends years silent, years praying, and years working. Finally, he becomes a monk. He goes to the head monk and says, "Now, can you tell me what the sound was?" The monk hands him a key and leads him to a heavy iron door. The man opens it, goes down a long tunnel, opens a wooden door, then a silver door, then a gold door. Finally, he reaches a room, and in the center is a giant pink gorilla playing the drums. The man is stunned. He runs back to the head monk and gasps, "I saw it! I saw the pink gorilla, but why was he there? What does it mean?" The monk looks at him and says, "I can't tell you, you're not a monk anymore. You just broke your vow of silence to ask me that." The man is driving.
A pink gorilla? I hope he hits you with those drumsticks. Turn the lights out.
And that's episode 7. Larry's gonna go paint his toenails, and I'm gonna go join a monastery where no one talks. Good night, primates.